the tropical region, when compared to temperate region, the deforestation is occurring to the maximum. Bishnoi community is known for peaceful coexistence, wherein they always worship Mother Nature and they believe that if Mother Nature is there, then they exist. If the deforested area is left undisturbed for few years, then reforestation, new trees can develop there. Instead of properly distributing the rain, what happens? Deforestation can cause sudden downpour of rain in one particular region, leading to soil erosion. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to the last session of chapter 16 of 2nd PUC, that is Environmental Issues. I am Dr. Divya, Biology Faculty, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Mysuru, Temple of Excellence. So in the previous session of this chapter, we learnt about the radioactive waste and its proper disposal. And we also learnt about what might happen if we improperly use the natural resources. In today's session, let us learn about deforestation, what are the methods to prevent deforestation, and since the history and since early times in India, how people have contributed in order to safeguard the forest. So, we'll take few case studies about that. So, talking about deforestation. So, deforestation is nothing but deforestation is cutting of trees, wherein the conversion of forest areas to non-forested ones, because continuous cutting of trees, the forest which was filled with trees will become a non-forested ones. So, according to an estimate, it is said that almost 40% of forests have been lost in the tropics, especially because of deforest, compared to only 1% in the temperate region. So, tropics is a region which has abundant natural resources and it has abundant amount of trees growing there. Why? Because tropics, the temperature is so well maintained and the climate or the monsoon is so well maintained that it facilitates lots of tree growth. Therefore, in the tropical region, when compared to temperate region, the deforestation is occurring to the maximum. So, the present scenario of deforestation in India is particularly grim because in spite of a lot of efforts and education provided to the people or knowledge provided to the people about the ill effects of deforestation, still people are into cutting of trees unnecessarily. And at the beginning of the 20th century, forests covered about 30% of the land of India. So, that is why because of deforestation now the forest area in India has been drastically reducing. So, by the end of the century it is said that it might shrink to 21.54%. Already it has reached to 30% because of deforestation and by the end of the 20th century it is said that it might shrink to 21.54%, whereas the National Forest Policy, which was put forth in 1988 of India, has recommended that 33% of forest cover for the plains and 67% for the hills have been reduced. So, forest covering various topography of India is drastically reducing because of deforestation. Next, let's study how does deforestation occur? What are the reasons for deforestation? So, one of the main reason for deforestation or cutting of trees or clearing of forest is to convert the forest to agricultural land so that enough amount of grains or food can be produced to feed the growing human population. And trees are especially cut for industrial purpose, that is for timber, for firewood, for cattle ranching and for several other purposes as well. And also trees are reducing because of deforestation is occurring because of slash and burn agriculture. So, slash and burn agriculture, it is commonly called as jhum cultivation in the eastern states of India, and it is one of the major factors or contributors for deforestation. It has contributed a lot to deforestation. So, what is the slash and burn agriculture? Why is it practiced? We shall look into. So the farmers during slash and burn agriculture, what they do is they need to clear the forest, right, in order to increase the agricultural land area. So what they do is the farmers, they cut down the trees of the forest, and whatever remains are there, that is whatever stumps of the trees are remaining, they'll just burn it. Instead of digging it deep and removing it from the root, stump part, they will just burn it. So the ash that is left over after burning of the stump or the remaining of the trees, they use it as fertilizer on the land itself, and that land they will use it for farming or for cattle grazing, because burnt forest, we know that very good grass grow there. So they'll convert it into either a farming land or they will convert it into a grazing land. So that is why they go in for slash and burning. So after cultivation, so say for example, they have converted it into a farming land. So after cultivation, what they do is they leave that area for several years to allow it to recovery. That is what they had practiced earlier time. But now they have become so greedy that they do not leave the area for recovery, but continuously they will start growing crops there. So the farmers then move to other areas and repeat this particular process. So in earlier days, when Jhum cultivation was in prevalence, enough time was given so that the land recovered from the effect of cultivation. As I told you, first they would go in for slashing and burning. Slashing is they would cut the trees. Then whatever tree remains are there, stumps are there, they'll burn it. After burning it, whatever ash is there, they will just spread the ash on the land and they will use it as a fertilizer to grow crops in that particular land. Either they will grow crops or they will allow the grasses to grow properly so that it can be used as a grassland for grazing. So if they grow crops, what they do is they usually grow crop for 1 year and then they will leave the land so that the fertility of the land will get replenished and again they can grow there. So they leave the land and move to a new land for slashing and burning agriculture. But nowadays they have become so greedy that what farmers do is they never wait for the land to recover. Very soon one crop is done, then they will just go in for the other crop or plantation of other crops. So that is what they are doing nowadays. So with increasing population and repeated cultivation, this recovery phase is done away with, resulting in deforestation. So they never leave it for recovery. For recovery means they leave it for few years where again the trees will start to grow. Again they will go in for slash and burning and again they will use the land. But now what they're doing is they're not allowing the land to replenish, but there and there itself they are using the same land and also using the other lands on a larger scale in a faster rate for slashing and burning agriculture purpose. So this is about slash and burn agriculture. Not just that, it is said that the slash and burn agriculture followed in Punjab and Delhi, nearby areas of Delhi and all that, was one of the major contributors for the air pollution in Delhi. So therefore slash and burn agriculture, a ban has been brought now and it is not practiced much now. So slash and burn agriculture is also called as Jhum cultivation. So next let's see what are the consequences of deforestation if deforestation occurs. If cutting of trees is done in a continuous manner, then what it will lead into, what problems we will have to face, let's look into. So one of the major effects of deforestation is it will increase the carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere, because we know that plants during the process of photosynthesis they make use of carbon dioxide, right? But if plants itself is not there, then photosynthesis will not occur. Therefore, where will that carbon dioxide be utilized? It will get accumulated in the atmosphere, and therefore this accumulation of carbon dioxide can lead to greenhouse effect. Greenhouse effect can lead to ozone depletion. See how it is connected, right? So that is why we have to be very cautious with the environment. And deforestation can also cause loss of biodiversity. So biodiversity, a variety of organisms live in a particular forest area and they depend on the forest for their survival, right? But if deforestation is done or cutting of trees is done in the forest, then it will lead to the habitat destruction, or it will destroy the habitat or the house of that particular organism. And also not just that, trees are responsible for bringing rain. Therefore, deforestation can disturb the hydrological cycle, and also deforestation can sometimes cause downpour of rain, because instead of properly distributing the rain, what happens? Deforestation can cause sudden downpour of rain in one particular region, leading to soil erosion. And not just that, the cutting of tree roots hold the soil very, very firmly. But if the trees are cut and if the roots are destroyed, then the soil erosion can occur very, very easily. Therefore, soil erosion, if it occurs, obviously it will lead to desertification in extreme cases. We have seen about this in the previous session, right? How desertification will occur. Now, how can we prevent deforestation? The only way to prevent deforestation is, even though you have cut trees for various purposes, for timber, for industrial purpose, for whatever it is, always go in for reforestation. That is, put back the trees in that particular area. Don't leave the land barren. So that is how reforestation is one of the major factors how we can prevent the ill effects of deforestation. So reforestation is the process of restoring a forest that once existed but it was completely removed because of the deforestation. So reforestation can occur naturally in a deforested area. If the deforested area is left undisturbed for few years, then reforestation, new trees can develop there. Otherwise, we can speed the reforestation process by ourselves planting the trees. So there are various clubs and organizations wherein groups of people find out the deforested areas or empty patches of land and they try to grow trees there. Therefore, reforestation process can be speed up. So we can speed it up by planting trees with due consideration to biodiversity that earlier existed in that area. So naturally, forests come up there, and therefore all the animals which were residing there will also come back, right? So that is how the biodiversity can also get maintained. So this is how reforestation will help. So we all know that India is a country which has a lot of rituals wherein we have worship trees, Mother Nature as gods, right? So a lot of contributions since time immemorial in the if you read the history of India, there are a lot of people who have contributed for control of this particular deforestation in order to conserve the forest or conserve the trees. What are their contributions? We shall study taking few case studies here. So the first contribution, first case study is of Bishnois of Rajasthan. This is a community of people living in Rajasthan. So it has a small story which is quite interesting. So in the year 1731, there was a king in Jodhpur, that is Jodhpur of Rajasthan. So what he did was, he ordered one of his ministers to arrange wood for constructing a new palace. So that king wanted to construct a new palace. So he told his ministers, go into the forest area or village area and cut down the trees. So these ministers and workers, they went to a forest near a village, and that village was actually inhabited by the Bishnois. So that village belonged to the Bishnoi community of Rajasthan. So these ministers reached that village and they started to cut down the trees in that particular village where the Bishnoi people were residing. So the Bishnoi community is known for peaceful coexistence, wherein they always worship Mother Nature and they believe that if Mother Nature is there, then they exist. So that is why they try to coexist with nature. So the effort to cut down trees by the king was thwarted by the Bishnoi. So these Bishnois, they prevented the ministers from cutting the trees. So what the ministers did was, they ordered the people, whoever came in their way in preventing of cutting of the trees, they ordered to kill them. So this is what was done. So this is how the love of a Bishnoi community towards the Mother Nature is shown here. So this is one of the case study, and there is a particular woman whose name is Amrita Devi. So a Bishnoi woman named Amrita Devi, she actually was the first person to show quite a lot of courage, wherein she went to running to a tree and she hugged the tree tightly. And That is, whenever the king's men went to cut the tree, she used to hug the tree tightly. So the tree mattered much more to her than her own life. So sadly, the king's men, they did not realize how much she is in love towards the mother nature, but instead of realizing all that, they just cut down the tree along with Amrita Devi. So Amrita Devi also got killed along with that particular tree. Her 3 daughters and hundreds of other Bishnois also followed her and thus lost their lives saving the trees. So this is how even today the Bishnoi community of Rajasthan, they worship Mother Nature, and for them, be it the black buck living there or be it the deers or whatever animals that are living there, they treat them as their own. They take utmost care of these animals. So you can just browse in Google. There are a lot of beautiful images that are available wherein how the Bishnoi people, they just treat the animals and all that. It is so quite interesting to read about it. So this was about the Bishnoi community in Rajasthan, wherein one woman named Amrita Devi, her contribution towards preventing the cutting of tree led to or created awareness among the other Bishnoi community people also. But by saving the trees, they had lost their lives as well. And that is when the king realized that his mistake, what he had done, and he stopped the cutting of the tree. So this is how they could save the trees. So that is why there is a particular award that is given. So the government of India has recently instituted an award which is called as the Amrita Devi Bishnoi Wildlife Protection Award, which is given to the individuals or communities from rural areas who have shown extreme courage in order to protect Mother Nature or in order to protect the wildlife. So this particular award is kept in honor of Amrita Devi, who was a Bishnoi community woman, and for her contribution towards the saving of trees. So this award is given even today by the government of India. It's called the Amrita Devi Bishnoi Wildlife Protection Award. So next we'll take one more example or case study here, that is the CHIPKO movement. CHIPKO means gluing on to something, right? So here the people glued on to the trees. Here also in 1974, the local women showed of a particular region, they showed enormous bravery in protecting trees from the acts of the contractors by hugging them. So the contractors, a particular industry had given a contract to few of the people in order to cut the trees. So when the contractors arrived at that particular location to cut the trees, a group of women, they just ran towards those trees and they started to hug the trees. Therefore, it was called as the CHIPKO movement. So people all over the world today, they practice this particular CHIPKO movement. Even today it is practiced. So environmentalists, all that, even you might have seen whenever there is a road construction going on, and if a tree, very old tree that is there, if the government orders to cut that particular tree, then you can see people staging protest or going and hugging the tree in order to protect it and all that. So therefore, CHIPKO movement is followed even today. And one more initiative that was taken by the government based on all this history, the government took an initiative which is the joint forest management, wherein they collaborated with the people living in the forest in order to protect the forest. So realizing the significance of participation by the local community, the government of India in 1980s, they introduced a new concept which is called as the joint forest management, wherein the government, they worked closely with the local communities living near the forest areas for protecting and managing the forest. And in return for the services provided by that particular community in contributing towards protecting the forest, the community gets benefit of various forest products. Example, they get benefits in the form of fruits, gum, rubber, medicine, etc. So these people are allowed to use these forest products freely. But what is their job? Their job is to hold hands with the government in order to protect the particular forest, and thus the forest can be conserved in a sustainable manner. So this is how, along with the local community, the government, they have collaborated, forming a joint forest management, wherein the local community people, they contribute to safeguarding the forest, and in turn they receive goods from the forest. So that is how the joint forest management is running even today. So this was about this particular session wherein we learned about deforestation, what are the causes and effects of deforestation and how deforestation can be prevented, and we learned two important case studies regarding the Bishnois of Rajasthan and the CHIPKO movement, like how they contributed towards the protection of the trees. And also we learnt about the initiative taken by the government to safeguard the forest, which is called as the joint forest management. So with this, the chapter comes to an end. So we shall meet again in the coming sessions. Thank you.